Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with my guest, Dr. Gabor Lukacs. He is the president and founder of Air Passenger Rights. Gabor, let's talk specifically about Canadian Airlines. Let's go into more detail on how they deal with issues. What's your observation and conclusions about that?
There are two prime strategies that we are seeing when the passenger complains to the airline. One is shifting the blame, rolling the hot potato to somebody else. Oh, it wasn't us, it was somebody else. And the other is stonewall, just making bold statements that may have no relationship to the reality and stating it as a final decision, as something unchangeable, and telling the passenger, if you don't like it, take us to court or take us to the Canadian Transportation Agency, which has a year-and-a-half backlog and over 60,000 complaints in backlog, which is an unrealistic.
60,000 complaints in backlog.
Yes, 60,000.
So can you give our audience some egregious examples of what you're talking about?
I wouldn't say that each one of them is egregious as a standalone. It is more the frequency of these incidents that makes them quite egregious. We have seen in the recent times issues about passengers with disabilities and their mistreatment receiving a lot of media attention. And because those are truly egregious, and everybody agrees that they are egregious, and they are not that frequent in terms of number of passengers who travel, but they are still frequent for the passengers who have a disability, I would hope, for example, that there some resolution will be found. But a typical experience by the average passenger is a situation where, say, you were flying from Halifax to Toronto to Frankfurt, and your flight from Halifax to Toronto was delayed by more than 3 hours because of crew shortage within the airline's control. It's not a safety issue. And then you miss the connection in Toronto and you fly a day later, and you're delayed at the destination by 24 hours. And then when you claim compensation from the airline under the Air Passenger Protection Regulations, the airline tells you that you are not owed compensation, or you're owed only compensation based on the delay of your first leg, even though you were more than 24 hours delayed at the destination. The law is clear that your entitlement depends on how much delayed you were at the destination. Other type of problems that we are seeing is when the airline claims that the passenger is not owed any compensation because their next flight on which they were protected ultimately did arrive on time. So just imagine if you are planning to fly from Montreal to Vancouver. Your flight is canceled for reasons within the carrier's control, no safety issue involved, and then you're put on the next flight a day later. And when you seek compensation, the airline says, well, your next flight did arrive on time, so why are you seeking compensation? We see patterns of that nature. The most frequent issue, though, is that the airline claims that anything and everything is outside their control. Anything that's outside their control, and it's a safety issue.
Yes, you're ringing a lot of bells with me, I got to say, Gabor, having spent Canada Day 2 Canada Days ago at the Frankfurt airport. I know exactly what you're speaking of. So that was not my choice, by the way. How do Canadian Airlines stack up to international practices and competing airlines then?
In terms of on arrival, on-time performance, we have just seen a day or two ago a new study showing that Canada is lagging behind. Canadian Airlines are last compared to other airlines internationally. So we are not faring well. In terms of standards, in terms of passenger rights, let's be clear, it is not the airline that is the problem, but regulations that the government put in place that are inferior in a substantial manner compared to the European Union's gold standard. The airlines are simply taking advantage of those rules, and they're acting in an opportunistic manner, but they are not causing the problem per se, in a sense that they are acting in an irrational manner. On the contrary, the airlines are corporations. Their job is to make profit for their shareholders. And unfortunately, in the current regulatory environment, the most profitable course of action for an airline is to break the law.
Yes, interesting because what you're saying is there's a combination of things. It's airline practice, but it's also the fact that our lax rules, let's put it that way, in Canada are making the situation worse. I do want to get into those rules and the reform of those rules. We will get to that topic. We are going to take a brief commercial break right now, though. We'll be back after these messages.